The Galactic Preparatory Academy on Prime was considered the safest educational institution in the known universe. Its crystalline towers reached toward the purple sky, housing the young minds from across 47 different species. Security protocols were absolute, with force fields, automated defense systems, and peacekeeper droids maintaining perfect order. Nobody expected what happened on the morning of Galactic Standard, Day 2847. A young with luminescent blue skin and 4 delicate arms was reviewing her quantum mathematics homework when the first scream echoed through the corridors. Her large, compound eyes flickered with confusion as the sound reverberated off the polished metal walls. Around her, 23 other students from various species looked up from their holographic displays, their expressions ranging from curiosity to mild concern. "Probably just another drill," muttered a reptilian whose scales shifted from green to yellow when nervous. His forked tongue tasted the air, though the timing seems off. The human exchange student sat in the back corner of the classroom. He was an oddity among the other students, shorter than most, with only 2 arms and eyes that seemed impossibly small compared to his classmates. His Earth was classified as a Class XII, a designation so extreme that most species considered it uninhabitable. The fact that humans had not only survived, but thrived on such a hostile planet made them subjects of scientific curiosity, and among some species, quiet fear. Had been silent during the morning lessons, as was his usual manner. Unlike his classmates, who came from worlds where the greatest natural threat might be a seasonal temperature fluctuation or a mildly aggressive herbivore, carried himself with a strange alertness. His head would turn at sounds others couldn't hear, his eyes would track movement others couldn't see, and he possessed an unsettling ability to remain perfectly still for long periods. The second scream was closer, followed by what sounded like metal being torn apart. Professor, an elderly with gossamer wings and a voice like wind chimes, fluttered nervously near her teaching podium. "Students, please remain calm. I'm sure this is simply a malfunction in the atmospheric recycling systems. The maintenance crew." The classroom door exploded inward. The creature that burst through was unlike anything in the Academy's extensive xenobiology databases. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in glistening black chitinous armor that seemed to absorb light. Multiple eyes dotted its elongated skull, each one burning with malevolent intelligence. Its forearms ended in claws that could slice through reinforced steel, and its mouth opened to reveal rows of serrated teeth dripping with acidic saliva. Most terrifying of all was its speed. Despite its massive size, it moved with the fluid grace of a predator evolved for killing. Class erupted into panic. Its forearms flailed as she tried to activate her personal emergency beacon, her fingers too shaky to work the controls. Scales had turned completely white, and he'd frozen in place, a defense mechanism that might work against predators on his peaceful but was useless here. Professor Swing's beat frantically as she tried to reach the emergency alert system, but her gossamer appendages, designed for gentle gliding in low gravity, were too delicate for rapid movement. The creature's multiple eyes scanned the room, cataloging targets. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and a sound emerged from its throat, part growl, part mechanical screech. Whatever this thing was, it hadn't evolved naturally. Someone had created it, designed it specifically for terror and death. Students scrambled over desks, their various forms of locomotion, walking, slithering, floating, creating chaos as they tried to reach the emergency exits. But the creature was faster. It lunged forward, covering half the classroom in a single bound, and its claws swept in a deadly arc toward a group of fleeing Aquarian students whose blue, gel-like bodies offered no protection against physical trauma. That's when laughed. Not a nervous giggle or a hysteria-induced cackle, but a genuine, amused chuckle that cut through the screams and panic like a blade through silk. The sound was so unexpected, so completely at odds with the situation, that even the creature paused mid-attack. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," said, his voice carrying a tone of bemused disappointment. He stood up slowly from his desk, stretching like someone who'd been sitting too long. "This is what had everyone screaming, this little thing." The creature's multiple eyes focused on him, perhaps recognizing that this small bipedal being was somehow different from the others. The other students had stopped their panicked flight, too shocked by the human's reaction to continue running. Professor whispered, her voice trembling, "Please don't antagonize it, back away slowly and—" "Back away," interrupted, taking a step forward instead. Professor, where I come from, we call something like this Tuesday. The creature let out another mechanical screech, clearly not accustomed to prey that moved toward it instead of away. It reared up to its full height, trying to intimidate this strange little being. Looked unimpressed. Yeah, no, that's not going to work on me. See, where I grew up, we had these things called spiders. Now, individually, they're about the size of your fingernail. Well, my fingernail anyway. But some of them were the size of dinner plates, and their bite could kill you in 30 minutes. Painful 30 minutes. He began walking toward the creature, his gait casual and relaxed. Several students gasped. Then we had the snakes. Beautiful creatures, really, but some of them could kill you with a single bite. Others would just swallow you whole while you were still alive. And the sharks, oh man, the sharks. Ancient killing machines that had been perfecting the art of murder for 400 million years. The creature, confused by this unprecedented response, took a step backward. But you know what the really scary thing was? Continued, now close enough that the creature could reach him with a single swipe of its claws. It wasn't any of those things. It was the stuff you couldn't see. Bacteria so small you needed a microscope to spot them, but they could wipe out entire cities. Viruses that could mutate faster than we could develop treatments. Parasites that would eat you from the inside out while keeping you alive just long enough to spread to other hosts. Stopped directly in front of the creature, which now seemed uncertain. Its multiple eyes darted between the human and the other students, as if trying to understand why this small being showed no fear. And that's just the biological threats, said, his voice taking on an almost conversational tone. We also had volcanoes that could block out the sun for years, earthquakes that could swallow mountains, hurricanes with winds that could pick up cars and throw them around like toys. Our planet tried to kill us every single day in 1,000 different ways. The human reached into his pocket and the creature tensed, expecting a weapon. Instead, pulled out what looked like a small piece of cloth. But you know what we did? We adapted, we learned, we survived, and eventually we started fighting back. Unfolded the cloth, revealing it to be a handkerchief. Now, I don't know who sent you or what you're supposed to accomplish here, but I'm going to give you some free advice. The creature's head tilted again, its multiple eyes blinking in sequence. You picked the wrong school, said quietly, and you definitely picked the wrong classroom. What happened next would be discussed in hushed tones throughout the academy for years to come. Moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for someone from a high-gravity world. His hand shot out faster than the creature could track, and his fingers found a specific point where the chitinous armor plates met on the creature's neck. The pressure he applied was minimal, barely enough to make a wince, but the creature's eyes went wide and its body went rigid. A sound emerged from its throat, not the mechanical screech from before, but something that sounded almost like surprise. Interesting, mused, maintaining his grip. Synthetic nervous system, but still based on carbon neural pathways. Someone did their homework, but they made one critical error. The creature tried to move its arms, but they wouldn't respond. Its legs trembled with the effort to step backward. They assumed that because you were designed to be bigger, stronger, and faster than most biological life forms, that would be enough. But they didn't account for experience. See, when your species evolves on a paradise world where the biggest threat is running out of fruit, you never develop the instinct to go for the kill shot. Applied slightly more pressure, and the creature collapsed to its knees, its multiple eyes rolling back. But when your species evolves on a planet where everything is trying to eat you, you learn anatomy. You learn weak points. You learn exactly how much pressure to apply and where to apply it to shut down the nervous system without causing permanent damage. The classroom was completely silent now, except for the creature's labored breathing. Oh yes, said, noticing the creature's distress. You need to breathe, don't you? Another design flaw. The folks who made you were thinking too much like engineers and not enough like killers. Professor found her voice. How are you? How did you know? Know what? That this was a synthetic organism designed to cause panic rather than actually kill anyone, shrugged. The smell was all wrong. Real predators smell like death and blood and hunger. This thing smells like lubricants and recycled air. Plus, look at the claws. They're designed to look scary, but the angle is all wrong for actual killing. These are meant to slash and terrorize, not to efficiently dispatch prey. Several students were recording this interaction on their personal devices, though their hands shook too badly to keep the images steady. But the real giveaway, continued, was the timing. It burst through the door right after we heard the first screams from the corridor. If this was a real predator hunting for food, it would have been silent. It would have picked off the weakest targets first from the edges, working its way inward. This thing wanted an audience. The creature's breathing became more labored and eased up on the pressure slightly. Which means this whole thing is either a very elaborate prank, a training exercise that got out of hand, or, his expression darkened, someone is testing the Academy's security, probing for weaknesses. As if summoned by his words, the classroom filled with the sound of heavy footsteps. Academy security forces in full combat armor burst through the destroyed doorway, energy weapons raised and scanning for threats. "Stand down," the lead officer shouted. "Academy security, everyone on the ground." The students immediately, their various anatomies allowing for different interpretations of "on the ground," but the intent was clear. However, remained standing with his hand still on the creature's neck. "I said stand down," the officer repeated, his weapon now trained specifically on. "Can't do that right now," replied calmly. "If I let go, this thing's motor functions will restart, and you'll have a 3-meter killing machine loose in a classroom full of kids." The lead officer's helmet display flickered as he accessed the Academy's threat assessment database. His posture shifted slightly when he saw its classification. "You're the human from Earth. Guilty as charged. And you're saying you have that creature incapacitated. For the moment, but its synthetic nervous system is already starting to adapt to the pressure point I'm using. I'd say you've got maybe 3 minutes before it figures out a workaround." The officer gestured to his squad, and they fanned out around the classroom, maintaining clear firing lines while several team members began evacuating the other students. "What do you need us to do?" the officer asked. "You got anything that can disrupt synthetic neural networks, some kind of EMP device or neural dampener?" "Neural dampeners are restricted technology. We don't." "Then you're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way." Script shifted slightly, and the creature let out a pained whine. "This thing's got what looks like a control interface behind its left shoulder blade. See that seam in the armor plating? That's not a natural growth pattern." One of the security officers moved carefully around behind the creature, weapon still raised. "I see it. Looks like some kind of access panel. That's your off switch, but you're going to have to move fast once I let go. This thing's pain tolerance is artificially high, but it's not unlimited." The officer positioned himself directly behind the creature, his armored fingers finding the edge of the panel. "Ready when you are." Looked around the classroom one more time, making sure all the students were clear. Professor was huddled near the emergency exit with the last group of evacuees, her gossamer wings torn and trembling. "On 3, said 1, 2. He released his grip and dove sideways. The creature's multiple eyes snapped into focus, and its body exploded into motion. But the security officer was ready. His armored fingers found the control panel and yanked it open, revealing a complex array of synthetic neurons and control circuits. The officer's other hand held a small device that he jammed into the exposed circuitry. There was a burst of electrical discharge, and the creature froze mid-lunge, its claws mere inches from where it had been standing. Then it toppled over like a felled tree, its systems completely shut down. "Threat neutralized," the officer announced into his comm unit. "Requesting team and xenobiology specialists for synthetic organism analysis." Stood up, brushing dust off his uniform. Not bad for government work. The lead officer removed his helmet, revealing the features of a veteran warrior. That was impressive. Most cadets would have been traumatized by an encounter like this. "Most cadets aren't from," replied with a shrug. As the team arrived and began securing the deactivated creature, the security officer approached privately. "Between you and me, kid, that thing was specifically designed to target this classroom. Someone knew your class schedule, knew which students would be here, knew the security protocols. This wasn't random." Nodded grimly. "I figured as much. Question is, were they testing Academy security or were they testing me specifically? Why would anyone want to test a student?" Looked out through the classroom's reinforced windows at the crystalline towers of the Academy, each one representing the pinnacle of civilization for dozens of species. Because someone out there knows that humans are different, and they want to know just how different we really are. The officer followed his gaze. You think this is connected to the recent tensions in the outer colonies, the rumors about human military expansion? I think, said quietly, that this is just the beginning. Whoever did this just learned that a single human cadet can neutralize a threat that would have slaughtered an entire classroom of other species. That's intelligence they can sell or use or build countermeasures against. As if to emphasize his point, several students who had been evacuated were now peering through the doorway, their large eyes fixed on with a mixture of awe and fear. Word would spread quickly through the Academy's social networks. The human who laughed at death. The survivor who treated mortal terror like a minor inconvenience. So what do we do now? The officer asked. Picked up his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. Now I go to my next class. Xenobiology, I think, should be interesting considering what just happened. He walked toward the door, then paused. But officer, you might want to upgrade your security protocols, because whoever sent that thing, they're going to try again, and next time they'll be ready for what they learned here today. As left the classroom, he could hear the officer already speaking rapidly into his comm unit, requesting immediate meetings with Academy administration and Galactic Security Council representatives. Behind him, the deactivated creature lay on the classroom floor like a discarded toy, its multiple eyes now dark and lifeless. But the data it had collected, biometric scans, behavioral analysis, threat assessment protocols, was already being transmitted across the galaxy to beings who viewed the human species not as students or allies, but as a problem to be solved. 3 days after the incident in Professor's classroom, the Galactic Preparatory Academy had transformed into something resembling a military installation. Security checkpoints appeared at every corridor junction, armed guards patrolled the residential wings, and students were required to carry tracking devices at all times. Found the increased security more amusing than concerning. As he walked through the Academy's central plaza, he noticed how the other students gave him a wide berth. Some stared at him with open curiosity, others whispered behind their various appendages, and a few seemed genuinely frightened of his presence. The reaction wasn't entirely unexpected. Word of his encounter with the synthetic creature had spread throughout the Academy within hours, growing more dramatic with each retelling. By now, according to the rumor mill, he had single-handedly defeated a squad of armed assassins, torn apart the creature with his bare hands, and laughed maniacally while doing it. A familiar voice called out. He turned to see approaching, her forearms managing to balance several data tablets while she moved. Her luminescent blue skin was paler than usual, and her large, compound eyes kept darting around as if expecting another attack. "Hey, Kex," said casually, "how are you holding up?" "How am I holding up?" She stared at him with disbelief. "We were almost killed 3 days ago. That creature could have torn us all apart, and you're asking how I'm holding up." "Well, yeah, trauma affects different species in different ways. I wanted to make sure you were processing it okay." His forearms gestured frantically. "Processing it okay? I haven't slept in 3 days. Every shadow looks like that thing. Every unexpected sound makes me jump. The Academy counselors say I need to start therapy sessions to deal with the psychological damage." Nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Your species evolved on a world where the biggest predator was about the size of a house cat, right? Your fight-or-flight response isn't calibrated for actual mortal threats." "And yours is?" asked, her voice rising. "That thing was designed to kill us, and you treated it like an inconvenience." "Yes, how are you so calm about this?" Considered the question seriously. Around them, other students were giving their conversation a wide berth, but he could see them listening intently. "Kex, what's the most dangerous thing you ever encountered on Prime?" She thought for a moment. "Well, there was a storm last year that knocked out power for 6 hours, and my cousin once fell down and scraped his knee pretty badly." "Okay, now, when I was 7 years old, I was playing in my backyard, and I came face to face with a grizzly bear." Size went wide. "A what?" "Grizzly bear. About 3 meters tall when it stands up, weighs around 300 kilograms, claws that can slice through metal, teeth designed for crushing bone. Oh, and they can run about 60 kilometers per hour." "What did you do?" "I stood very still and waited for it to lose interest and wander off, which it eventually did, but that was just Tuesday afternoon. Later that week, my family went camping near a lake that was home to creatures called alligators, basically living dinosaurs with jaws powerful enough to crush a small vehicle. Several more students had gathered around now, pretending to study their tablets while obviously listening to every word. The point is, continued, when you grow up surrounded by things that can kill you, you develop a different relationship with danger. That synthetic creature was scary, sure, but it wasn't scary in a way I hadn't dealt with before. But it was specifically designed to terrify, protested the student. His scales were still showing stress patterns. The psychological warfare protocols were extremely sophisticated. Shrugged, maybe, but psychological warfare only works if you're afraid of dying. And humans, well, we've been dying for so long that we've gotten pretty comfortable with the idea. Comfortable with dying? Looked horrified. Not eager for it, mind you, but accepting of it. See, on Earth, everything is temporary. Are shorter than most galactic species, our planet is constantly trying to kill us, and we've spent most of our history fighting wars against each other. Death isn't this abstract concept that happens to other people. It's a neighbor that could come knocking any time. Professor approached the group, her gossamer wings still showing signs of damage from the attack. Could I speak with you privately? The gathered students reluctantly dispersed, though noticed several of them finding excuses to linger within earshot. Professor said, "How are you doing?" "That's what I wanted to ask you," she replied, her wind chime voice more subdued than usual. "The Academy administration has asked me to conduct psychological evaluations of all the students who were present during the incident. And your evaluation results are unusual." Waited for her to continue. "According to standard psychological assessment protocols, you should be experiencing severe trauma, anxiety, possibly PTSD. The threat you faced was categorized as extreme lethal danger by our best. But I'm not experiencing any of those things. No, in fact, your stress indicators were lower during the attack than they are during normal classroom instruction." Laughed, "Well, that makes sense. Pop quizzes are way more stressful than life-or-death situations." Professor didn't seem to find this amusing. "I've been teaching for 30 years across 17 different species. I've never seen anyone react to mortal danger the way you did." "Is that a problem?" "I don't know, that's what worries me." She gestured for him to walk with her toward a more private area of the plaza. "The Academy has received some inquiries about you." "What kind of inquiries?" "Military recruiters, research institutions, government agencies from several different species. Word of your performance has spread beyond the Academy." Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the climate control system. "What kind of research institutions?" "The kind that study biological weapons, enhanced soldier programs, psychological warfare development." Professor's wings fluttered nervously. "I think you need to understand something. What you did 3 days ago, neutralizing that creature with your bare hands. Most military specialists couldn't have managed that." "Most military specialists aren't from." "Exactly, and that's what has people worried." She stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "There are species in the galaxy that view humanity as a potential threat. Your classification, your species' history of warfare, your adaptation to extreme environments. Some view these as warning signs." "Warning signs of what?" "Of a species that might eventually challenge the existing galactic order." Thought about this? Around them, the Academy's crystal towers gleamed in the alien sunlight, representing thousands of years of peaceful cooperation between dozens of species. It was easy to forget that this harmony hadn't always existed, that it had been built on careful treaties and mutual understanding. And my little demonstration 3 days ago just reinforced those concerns. "I'm afraid so, the way you handled that creature. It wasn't just that you weren't afraid. It was that you were competent, methodical. You analyzed the threat, identified its weaknesses, and neutralized it with precision. That's not instinct, that's training." "Training I never received," pointed out. "Everything I did was based on growing up on Earth." Which is exactly what has them worried. If a single human student with no military training can do what you did, what could trained human soldiers accomplish? Was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. "Professor, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That creature, the security team said it was specifically targeting our classroom, but which one of us was it really after?" Professor's wings went very still. What do you mean? I mean, someone went to a lot of trouble to create a synthetic organism designed to cause terror, smuggle it past Academy security, and turn it loose in a classroom full of students from peaceful species. But they had to know that security would respond quickly. They had to know the thing would be neutralized before it could actually kill anyone. So what was the point? The point was to see how we would react, specifically how I would react. His expression grew grim. Someone wanted to know what a human would do when faced with mortal danger in a controlled environment. That's a very serious accusation. Is it wrong? Professor was quiet for a long moment. The preliminary investigation has revealed some disturbing evidence. The creature's design included advanced recording equipment, biometric scanners, behavioral analysis systems, stress response monitors. It was gathering data. Yes, and that data has already been transmitted off-world. To who? We don't know yet. The transmission was encrypted and routed through several relay stations. But the encryption protocols were military-grade. Whoever ordered this has significant resources. Looked around the peaceful Academy Plaza, where students from dozens of species went about their daily routines, studying, socializing, preparing for careers in science, diplomacy, and trade. Most of them had never seen violence, never faced genuine danger, never had to make life-or-death decisions. Professor, I need to ask you a favor. What kind of favor? I need access to the Academy's historical database. Specifically, records of human contact with other species, military capabilities assessments, anything that might explain why someone would be interested in testing human combat responses. That's classified information. Even if I wanted to help you, my access level isn't high enough. Then I need to talk to someone whose access level is high enough. That would be Academy Director, but he's been in closed-door meetings with Galactic Security Council representatives for the past 2 days. The incident has triggered some very high-level discussions. About Academy security. About humanity's place in the galactic community. Felt another chill, and what's the current consensus? I don't know, but I can tell you that several species representatives have requested detailed information about human military capabilities, population distribution, and expansion patterns. They're scared of us. Some are, others are curious, a few are interested. Interested how? Interested in forming alliances, interested in recruiting human military advisors, interested in studying human combat psychology. Professor's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. There are rumors that some species are considering offering humanity advanced technology in exchange for military partnership agreements. And others are considering preemptive action to prevent that from happening. She didn't answer, but her expression was answer enough. Stared up at the crystal towers of the Academy, each one representing decades of peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding. It occurred to him that his simple reaction to a life-threatening situation might have just upset a delicate balance that had taken centuries to establish. Professor, I think I need to send a message home. To your family. To my government. I think they need to know that humanity just became a much more interesting species to our galactic neighbors. As if summoned by his words, a group of Academy security officers appeared at the edge of the plaza, moving with purpose toward their location. Mr. the lead officer called out, Director would like to speak with you immediately. Looked at Professor, who nodded encouragingly despite the worry in her expression. Looks like that conversation is happening sooner than I thought, said. As he walked with the security officers toward the Academy's administrative tower, couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The comfortable anonymity of being just another exchange student was over. Whether he wanted it or not, he had become a representative of humanity in a galaxy that was suddenly very interested in what humans were capable of. And based on the expressions of the students and faculty, he passed on the way to the director's office. That interest was not entirely friendly. Director's office occupied the top floor of the Academy's central tower, with panoramic windows offering views of the sprawling campus and the pristine cityscape beyond. The director himself was a member of the Etherian species, tall and graceful with skin that seemed to shift between translucent and opaque depending on his emotional state. Currently, it was completely opaque, indicating high stress levels. Entered the office to find he wasn't the only one present. 3 other beings sat around the director's conference table, their appearances and equipment marking them as off-world officials rather than Academy personnel. Mr. Director gestured toward an empty chair. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Settled into the chair, which automatically adjusted to accommodate his human physiology. He studied the other occupants of the room with the same careful attention he'd shown the synthetic creature days earlier. The first was a military officer, his features and multiple service insignia marking him as a veteran of several conflicts. His uniform bore the symbols of the Galactic Security Council, and his cybernetic eye was almost certainly recording everything in the room. The second was a scientist, her large cranium pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated intense intellectual activity. They were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical capabilities and their complete inability to understand emotional responses, which made them ideal for objective research. The third being was the most interesting. Didn't recognize the species, but their heavily modified body suggested extensive cybernetic enhancement. Multiple appendages extending from their torso held various scanning devices, all of which seemed to be focused on him. The director began, "These individuals represent several organizations with interests in the recent incident. General from the Galactic Security Council, doctor from the Xenobiology Research Institute, and coordinator nexuses even from a consulting firm specializing in threat assessment." Nodded politely to each of them. "Pleasure to meet you all, though I have to say this feels more like an interrogation than a student conference." "That's because it is," General said bluntly. Your actions 3 days ago have raised significant questions about human capabilities and intentions." "My intentions were to stop a creature from killing my classmates. I thought that was pretty clear." "Your methods were what concerns us," Doctor interjected, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to indicate analytical focus. "According to Academy records, you have no military training, no combat experience, and no formal education in xenobiology or synthetic organism design." "That's correct. Yet you identified the creature as synthetic within seconds, analyzed its behavioral patterns, located its primary weakness, and neutralized it using pressure point techniques that shouldn't have been effective against non-carbon-based neural systems." Shrugged, "Lucky guess." Coordinator Nexus's Even's multiple appendages clicked and whirred as their scanning devices focused more intently on him. "Our analysis indicates deception. Your stress patterns suggest you are withholding information." "My stress patterns probably indicate that I don't like being scanned by devices I don't recognize." Director raised a hand for silence. I understand your reluctance to cooperate, but you must understand the situation. Your performance has raised questions that go beyond Academy security." "What kind of questions?" General activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. "These are the current troop deployments for the major galactic powers. Notice anything?" Studied the display. Thousands of dots representing military forces were scattered across hundreds of star systems, with different colors indicating different species and alliance structures. "Looks like a lot of people with a lot of weapons pointed at each other." "Exactly. The galaxy has been in a state of careful balance for the past 2 centuries. No single species or alliance has enough military power to threaten the others, which has maintained peace. And then we encounter humans." The display shifted, zooming in on a small cluster of systems near the galactic rim. "Your species controls 17 inhabited systems, with a total population of approximately 40 billion. By any mathematical analysis, you should be completely insignificant in galactic affairs." "But we're not." 3 days ago, a single human student neutralized a threat that our best military analysts estimate would have required a full combat squad to handle safely. This suggests that our estimates of human military capabilities may be significantly inadequate. Doctor's patterns shifted again. We have reviewed the complete biological profile of your Earth is classified as a Class XII with a threat rating that exceeds the combat training environments used by most galactic militaries. So every human who reaches adulthood has, by definition, survived conditions that would kill trained soldiers from other species. Your entire population consists of what we would classify as elite survivors. Began to understand where this was going. You're worried that humans are naturally better at warfare than other species. We're worried, General said grimly, that humans might be so much better at warfare that the current galactic balance could collapse if your species decided to expand aggressively. That's ridiculous. We're outnumbered by orders of magnitude. Quality versus quantity, Coordinator Nexus's even intoned, their mechanical voice devoid of emotion. One human soldier might be worth 10, 50, or even 100 soldiers from conventional species. You're all making some pretty big assumptions based on one incident. Are we? Doctor activated another holographic display. This is a compilation of every recorded human military action since first contact with galactic civilization. The display showed dozens of small engagements, mostly peacekeeping operations and anti-piracy actions. Notice that in every case, human forces were outnumbered but successful. In 47 separate military engagements, human forces have never suffered a defeat. Your casualty rates are consistently lower than any other species. Your tactical adaptability scores exceed our measurement scales. Maybe we're just lucky. Mr. Director said quietly, luck doesn't account for what happened in that classroom. You didn't just survive an attack. You dominated it. You controlled it. You turned a situation where you should have been the victim into one where you were the predator. The room fell silent for a moment as everyone processed the implications of those words. So what happens now? Asked. General leaned forward. That depends on you and on humanity as a whole. How so? Several species governments are currently debating whether humans represent a threat that needs to be contained or an ally that needs to be courted. Your actions here may influence those debates. My actions were to protect my classmates. We know, and that's what makes this situation so complicated. The general gestured to the holographic displays. If humans were naturally aggressive, if you had attacked that creature out of bloodlust or territorial instinct, we could classify you as a hostile species and respond accordingly. But that's not what happened, Doctor continued. You demonstrated controlled, defensive behavior. You protected the weak. You used the minimum necessary force. You showed tactical brilliance combined with ethical restraint. Which makes you the most dangerous possible combination, Coordinator Nexus's even added. Competent warriors who fight for principles rather than conquest. Looked around the room at the assembled officials. You're afraid of us. Some of us are, General admitted. Others want to recruit you, still others want to study you, but all of us recognize that the galaxy just became a more complicated place. What do you want from me specifically? Director answered. We want you to continue your education here at the Academy. We want you to serve as an unofficial ambassador for your species. We want you to help us understand humanity's intentions regarding galactic affairs. And if I refuse, then you'll be returned to Earth, and humanity will likely find itself isolated from galactic civilization until these concerns are resolved. Thought about this? How long do you think that isolation would last? Unknown, Doctor admitted. Some projections suggest decades. Others suggest that attempts to isolate a species with humanity's demonstrated capabilities could lead to conflict. Conflict you don't think you can win. General's expression was grim. Mister, 3 days ago we thought we understood the strategic balance of this galaxy. Today, we're not sure of anything. Stood up and walked to the panoramic windows, looking out over the Academy campus, where students from dozens of species went about their daily routines in peaceful cooperation. You know what I think, he said finally. What? I think you're overthinking this. Yes, humans are good at surviving dangerous situations. Yes, we're probably better at warfare than most species, but you're missing the most important thing about humanity. Which is? Turned back to face the assembled officials. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We're too busy trying not to get killed by our own planet. Explain. Every human who makes it off Earth does so because they've spent their entire lives learning to work together, to solve problems, to adapt to impossible circumstances. We don't see other species as threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. We see them as potential allies in the fight against entropy. Entropy. The universe is a hostile place. It's constantly trying to kill everything in it through physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. Humans learned a long time ago that the only way to survive is to build cooperation wherever possible. Doctor's bioluminescent patterns shifted to indicate confusion. But your species' history includes extensive warfare. Against ourselves, yeah, but that was when we thought we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Now that we know better, gestured toward the window. Why would we want to fight you when we could be working together to build something like this? He pointed at the academy campus, with its crystal towers and peaceful plazas. You're saying humanity has no expansionist ambitions. Oh, we definitely want to expand. We want to explore every star system, catalog every planet, meet every species, learn everything there is to learn. His expression grew serious. But we want to do it together. The universe is scary enough without making enemies. General studied him carefully. And if other species refuse to cooperate, if they see humanity as a threat and act preemptively? His demeanor shifted subtly. The relaxed, casual student disappeared, replaced by something harder and more focused. Then they'll discover that humans are very, very good at warfare, and that we don't fight fair. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. But it won't come to that, continued, his easy smile returning. Because most species are smart enough to recognize a good deal when they see one. Humans bring unique capabilities to the galactic community. In exchange, we gain access to technologies, knowledge, and perspectives that we could never develop on our own. And if some species aren't smart enough to recognize that good deal, then they'll learn, hopefully before anyone gets hurt. Coordinator Nexus's Evan's appendages clicked rapidly. Threat assessment updated. Recommend immediate diplomatic overtures to human government. Doctor's patterns shifted again. Concur. Human psychological profile suggests genuine cooperative intent combined with exceptional defensive capabilities. General was quiet for a long moment. Mister, you've given us a lot to think about. Good, because I've got a xenobiology exam tomorrow that I need to study for. Director actually smiled at that. Mister, how would you feel about making some changes to your curriculum? What kind of changes? We'd like you to audit some additional courses. Galactic history, military strategy, diplomatic protocols, psychology. Sounds like you're training me for something specific. We'd like you to consider a career in galactic diplomacy, specifically as a liaison between humanity and the other species. Thought about this? That's a big responsibility. Yes, it is, but 3 days ago you proved that you can handle big responsibilities. What makes you think other humans would listen to me? Because, General said, you're the human who laughed at death and won. That story is going to spread throughout human space. You'll have credibility. Looked around the room one more time, at the assembled officials who represented the power structures of galactic civilization. Okay, he said finally, but I have some conditions. Name them. First, I want full access to galactic historical databases. If I'm going to represent humanity's interests, I need to understand exactly what we're getting into. Agreed. Second, I want regular communication with Earth. I'm not making any commitments on behalf of my species without consulting with them. Also agreed. Third, I want protection for the other human students and exchange participants. If someone was willing to attack an academy classroom to test human capabilities, they might try more direct approaches. Already arranged. And finally, his expression grew serious, I want to know who was behind that attack. Someone out there has already decided that humans are interesting enough to study covertly. I want to know who they are and what their intentions are. That investigation is ongoing. We'll share what we learn. Nodded, then I guess I'm your guy. As the meeting concluded and the officials filed out, Director remained behind. Mister, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Were you really not afraid during that attack? Consider the question seriously. I was terrified, Director, absolutely terrified. But you didn't show it. You acted with complete confidence. That's because fear and panic are two different things. Fear keeps you alive by making you careful and alert. Panic gets you killed by making you stupid. And humans learn to distinguish between the two. Humans who survive to adulthood do. The ones who don't, well, they don't. Director studied him for a moment. "Mister, I think the galaxy is about to become a very interesting place." Looked out the window at the Academy campus, where students from dozens of species continued their daily routines, unaware that the balance of galactic civilization had shifted in the span of a single conversation. "Director," he said, "I think you're right." As left the office and made his way back toward the student quarters, he passed groups of students who pointed and whispered as he went by. Word of the meeting had already begun to spread through the Academy's informal networks. The human who had faced down a synthetic killer was now the human who had sat at the same table as representatives of galactic power. But wasn't thinking about his newfound notoriety. He was thinking about the attack 3 days earlier, about the sophisticated recording equipment built into the creature, about the encrypted transmissions that had carried data to unknown recipients. Someone out there had wanted to test human capabilities. They had gotten their answer, but suspected that test had been only the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous. As he passed through the Academy's security checkpoints, now staffed with guards who nodded respectfully rather than simply scanning for threats, made a mental note to send a very detailed message to Earth. Humanity was no longer an unknown quantity in galactic affairs. Whether that turned out to be a good thing or a catastrophic mistake remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other beings were making plans based on what they had learned about the species from the plans that would soon test whether humanity's reputation for survival was truly deserved.